I was born on a cold autumn morning, just a few minutes after my twin sister, but that small gap felt like it stretched across my entire life. Even as a child, I felt like a shadow. Always there but never truly noticed. My name is Emily Carter, but in that house, I often felt like just the other one. And my sister Allison? She was the center of everything. My parents, Lisa and David Carter, owned a charming little house in the suburbs of Massachusetts, the picture-perfect image of a middle-class American family. On the surface, they were devoted parents, but in reality, their love was never equally divided. My mother was a successful real estate agent, always busy with clients in impeccably tailored business suits. My father ran a small accounting firm, spending most of his time buried in spreadsheets, rarely paying attention to what was happening at home. But if there was one thing they both did care about, it was Allison. I don't remember the exact moment I realized the imbalance in our house. Maybe it was the afternoon when Mom took us both shopping, and Allison got a brand new pair of sneakers, while I had to pick from the clearance rack. Or maybe it was Christmas, when we were 7, and under the tree Allison's pile of presents towered nearly twice as high as mine. But perhaps the clearest sign was the way they looked at her. Eyes filled with pride, with expectations. And the way they looked at me, as if I were just an afterthought. Allison was always the favorite, whether it was birthdays, clothes, or compliments when guests came over. Even in family photos, Mom always positioned her front and center, dressed in expensive dresses with perfect curls, while I stood off to the side in a last-minute, bargain bin outfit. Any summer job. They weren't cruel, exactly, they just didn't need me. And I spent my entire childhood trying to understand why. I never thought I was that different from Allison when we were little. We had the same soft brown hair, the same green eyes as Dad. But somehow, she always seemed to shine brighter. Or maybe, she was simply placed in the light, while I remained in the shadows. I first noticed it when we were about 5. Mom took us shopping for new fall clothes. I had been so excited when I saw a pair of blue sneakers that I absolutely loved, but when Mom glanced at the price tag, she shook her head. "Too expensive, Emily, we need to save money." I nodded even though I didn't fully understand what saving money meant at the time. But just a few minutes later when she stopped at another rack and picked out a brand new pair of Nike sneakers for Allison, something inside me shifted. "But you said we needed to save," I said. Mom didn't even look up. "Allison needs good shoes for gym class." "You don't?" I didn't argue, I just lowered my head, accepted the clearance rack shoes, and told myself they weren't that bad. But inside, something unfamiliar took root. A small stone dropped into the still water of my mind, sending out the first ripples. The difference became even clearer during the holidays. I remember Christmas when we were 6. The night before, Allison and I hung our stockings by the fireplace, giggling with excitement for Santa's arrival. But the next morning, as we ran downstairs, I noticed it immediately. Allison's stack of presents was taller than me. Mine? A small, neat pile, in the corner. I swallowed the lump in my throat, telling myself, it's not about the number. It's about the thought. But, as Allison tore open box after box, Barbie dolls, a dollhouse, a set of expensive art supplies. I unwrapped a cheap plastic doll and a coloring book. "Do you like it, Emily?" Dad asked as I pulled out my final gift. A plain gray sweater, clearly bought in a last-minute rush. I smiled, even though it wasn't entirely genuine. "Yeah, I love it." But when I looked over at Allison, I saw Mom helping her tie ribbons in her hair, admiring her brand new princess dress, telling her how beautiful she looked. Nobody even noticed me. When Allison turned 6, Mom took her to a salon to get her ears pierced. I remember staring at her sparkling new earrings, a childish envy bubbling inside me. "I want to get mine pierced too," I said. Mom shook her head without hesitation. "Earrings wouldn't suit you, Emily, you wouldn't like them." I didn't understand, how did she know what I'd like if I'd never even tried? Then, when Mom signed Allison up for ballet lessons, I was so excited. I wanted to wear a pink tutu, to spin on the polished wooden floors just like her. But when I asked, Mom just shook her head. We can't afford for both of you to take lessons. But there was always money for Allison. If she wanted something, Mom found a way. Gymnastics, piano, swimming. Allison had the chance to experience everything, while I was always left on the sidelines, watching in silence. I tried not to care. I told myself maybe I didn't really want those things. But at night, as I stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars on our ceiling, Allison's side, always shining brighter than mine, I realized favoritism wasn't just about material things. It was in the little details. The ones people didn't even notice. And that was what hurt the most. I always hoped that once I started school, my world would change. That I wouldn't be the forgotten child or Allison's shadow anymore. I thought maybe teachers would see me, classmates would treat me fairly, and maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally realize that I mattered too. But I was wrong. On the first morning of school, Mom took us outside for pictures. Allison and I wore identical uniforms. Plaid skirts, white blouses, navy cardigans. For the first time, I felt like we were truly twins. Equal. But then Mom raised her phone, tilted her head toward Allison, and said, "Listen, turn your head a little. Yes, just like that, now smile, perfect." I stood beside them, waiting, but Mom just checked the picture and put her phone away. Not a single photo with me as the focus. I told myself it was just an oversight. But as we stepped into school, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a pattern that would never end. After our first class, I saw Mom's car parked by the school gate. I hurried toward it, but before I could reach the door, she turned to Allison, her face lighting up. "Ready for ballet class, sweetheart?" I stared at her, waiting. But she barely glanced at me. "Emily, go straight home and finish your homework." I didn't know why I was surprised. This was how it always went. Monday through Friday, Mom took Allison to extracurriculars. Ballet, piano, painting, swimming lessons on the weekends. And me? I walked home alone, did my homework in an empty house, listening only to the ticking clock and the distant sounds of the neighbors outside. At first I thought if I worked hard enough they would notice me. I spent hours perfecting my handwriting, doing extra math problems, reading ahead in literature class so I could answer every question the teacher asked. I started getting perfect scores on my tests. But it didn't change anything. One evening, after Mom and Allison returned from ballet, I ran up to them, holding out my math test. "Mom, I got a perfect score," I said excitedly, handing her the paper. She glanced at it for barely a second before turning to Allison. "Sweetheart, what did you learn in ballet today?" "I learned how to do a triple spin. My teacher said I did amazing," Allison beamed. Mom clapped her hands, her face glowing with pride. "I knew it. My little star is so talented." I stood there, still holding my test paper, feeling nothing but emptiness. By the time I turned 12, I had stopped expecting recognition from my parents. I just kept my head down, studying in silence, trying to ignore the constant feeling of being left behind. But then, one night, I heard something I could never forget. It was late. I had stayed up reading in my room. My door wasn't fully closed, and through the crack I heard my parents talking downstairs in the living room. "Do you ever think we made a mistake?" Dad's voice was low. "Mistake?" Mom sounded irritated. "The kids. I mean, Allison is wonderful, but do you ever think two was too many?" Silence. My heart pounded in my chest. "Of course," Mom whispered. "Allison is everything we could have hoped for in a child. But Emily, she's just there. There's nothing special about her." My hands clenched the edge of my bed. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I had always known they didn't love me the way they loved Allison. But hearing them say it, confirming they had never even wanted me, was like a knife straight to my heart. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in my life, I stopped hoping. From the night I overheard my parents say they never wanted me, something inside me changed. Before, I had tried to get Mom's attention, to earn Dad's praise, to carve out a place for myself in this family. But now I understood. No matter what I did, they would never change. They had long ago decided that Allison was their pride, the only child they truly needed. I couldn't change them, but I could change myself. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I no longer hoped for my parents' love, but I still had my mind. If I couldn't win their approval, I would win something else. Success. I threw myself into my studies. If the teacher assigned 3 chapters, I read 5. If an essay required 1 page of analysis, I wrote 3, with airtight arguments. I joined academic clubs, competed on the debate team, and won every academic competition I entered. Slowly, my teachers began to notice me. "Emily, your essay on the American dream was truly exceptional," my English teacher remarked one day. "Emily always demonstrates excellent logical reasoning," my math teacher praised in front of the class. Every time I heard those words, I felt stronger. I didn't need my parents' recognition. I could prove my worth on my own. But not everyone was happy about it. Allison was used to being the center of attention, but now, there was something she couldn't have: the admiration of our teachers. I saw the irritation in her eyes every time I was praised, the frustration in her voice when I won first place in a competition. "That's so boring," she muttered when she saw me holding a gold medal. "Who even cares?" But I knew Allison cared. And I knew Mom cared too. Not because she was proud of me, but because she couldn't stand seeing Allison overshadowed. It all came to a breaking point on a Monday afternoon. We had just finished an important exam, and when the teacher announced the scores, I ranked first in the class, with a perfect score. Allison, sitting right beside me, barely managed an average grade. That night at dinner, Mom was unusually quiet, but I could feel the tension in the air. And the next morning, as I walked through the school hallway, I saw her standing with the principal. "Principal Dawson, I'm very concerned," her voice rang out, loud enough for me and several students nearby to hear. "The teachers here seem to have a clear bias. I can't help but notice that my daughter, Allison, is being treated unfairly. Meanwhile, Emily gets all the praise." I froze. I could not believe my mother was doing this. The principal, ever professional, responded in a calm voice. "Mrs. Carter, the students' grades accurately reflect their abilities. There is no favoritism here." But my mother refused to accept that. She argued, growing more insistent, but in the end, when she realized she couldn't change anyone's mind, she stormed off, her face flushed with anger. Allison stepped out of the office right after, a smug expression on her face. "Mom's not going to let this go," she whispered, as she walked past me. But I didn't care. I didn't need Mom's approval. I just needed to keep moving forward. I was exhausted from having to beg my parents for pocket money, only to watch them hand Allison large bills without a second thought. So when I turned 16, I decided to earn my own money. I got a job at a small cafe near our house. It wasn't glamorous, brewing coffee, wiping tables, cleaning up. But I loved the independence. I loved having coworkers who actually valued me. Loved the way customers smiled and thanked me when I brought them their drinks. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had a place, however small, in a world that didn't revolve around Allison. But of course that didn't sit well with her. "I can't believe you're actually working as a waitress," she scoffed one morning when she saw me in my cafe uniform. "That's so pathetic." I just shrugged. "Good," I said, not even pretending to care about her insults. "I have no desire to live extravagantly like you." Allison glared at me, but for the first time, I didn't feel afraid or hurt. I was building a life of my own, and I knew This was only the beginning. I always thought my mother's side of the family didn't exist. Growing up, I never once heard Mom mention my maternal grandparents. No pictures, no letters, no holiday phone calls. When I asked, she always gave the same curt response. "In a part of our lives." No one dared to question it further, and over time, I simply accepted that they were either dead or not worth remembering. But then, one day, I discovered the truth. That night, I came home from my cafe shift. As I passed by Mom's office, I heard her voice. Sharp, irritated. "I told you, I don't need anything from you, stop calling me." A long silence followed before she spoke again, her tone lower but just as cold. "I built a better life without you, don't try to crawl back in." Then came the slam of the phone, so loud that I flinched. I stood frozen outside the door, my heart pounding. Who was she talking to? I had never seen her so rattled before. And from what I had just heard, there was only one possibility. It had to be my grandparents. Curiosity gnawed at me all night. The next morning, while Mom and Allison were out shopping, I searched through her office. Among stacks of files and business documents, I found an old notebook, its brown leather cover worn with age. Flipping through the pages, I stopped when I spotted a handwritten address. Right next to the words, "Do not contact." I sat down, my pulse quickening. It was an address in the next town over, not far at all. And I knew exactly what I had to do. That afternoon, instead of heading to work, I took the bus to the address in the notebook. I didn't know what to expect. A run-down house, a shabby neighborhood. But when the bus stopped, I was stunned. In front of me stood a charming, well-kept house with a neatly trimmed lawn, vibrant flower beds, and a pristine white picket fence. There was no sign that this was the home of people my mother had deemed not worth contacting. I walked up to the door and took a deep breath before knocking. Within seconds, the door opened. The woman standing before me had silver hair neatly pinned back, warm brown eyes filled with surprise. Behind her, an older man with thin glasses stood up from his chair, studying me intently. "And you are?" I swallowed hard, my voice trembling as I spoke. "I'm Emily Carter." The woman's eyes widened. The man mumbled something under his breath as they both froze, staring at me. "Oh my God," she whispered, covering her mouth with her hand. "It's her. It's our granddaughter." Before I could react, she pulled me into a tight embrace. They ushered me inside, seating me on a velvet-upholstered burgundy couch. Before I could even ask a question, she started crying. "We never thought we'd get to meet you," she said, gripping my hands. "We tried to reach out, but your mother, she never let us." "Wait," I asked, my chest tightening. "Why did she cut you out of her life?" The old man sighed. "Because your mother always wanted a more glamorous life. When she married your father, she felt ashamed that we weren't as wealthy as his family." I clenched my fists. Had my mother really erased an entire part of our family just because of that? But before my anger could rise, my grandmother spoke again, her voice soft but firm. "My dear, there's something you should know." She glanced at my grandfather before turning back to me, her expression filled with quiet mystery. "We're not poor." I blinked. "What?" My grandfather chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "We invested in technology years ago. Now let's just say we're quite comfortable financially. But we never wanted a lavish life. We love this home, this life." I sat there, speechless. My mother had abandoned them because she thought they weren't good enough, when in reality, they might be wealthier than my parents? My grandmother squeezed my hand gently. "But none of that matters. What matters is that you're here now, and you always have a family here, Emily." For the first time in a long time, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere. And I knew this was only the beginning. I had always known my place in this family. I wasn't the pride. I wasn't the cherished child. But even though I had accepted that truth, I still wasn't prepared for how brutally obvious they would make it on my graduation day. Graduating from high school should have been a milestone. A moment to celebrate my achievements, my hard work, my transition into adulthood. But in the Carter family, it was just another event for Allison. From the early morning hours, Mom fussed over Allison's outfit, carefully steaming the cream-colored silk dress she had specially bought for the ceremony. Dad hovered around, taking endless photos of her from every angle, showering her with praise about how perfect she looked. And me? I quietly put on the simple dress I had bought for myself with my own hard-earned money. No one even asked if I needed help. At the ceremony, when the principal announced my name as valedictorian, a sparse round of applause echoed through the auditorium. I stood on stage, scanning the family section. My parents clapped half-heartedly, but within seconds, they turned back to their conversation with Allison, admiring her dress. But when Allison's name was called, just as an ordinary graduate, my parents jumped to their feet, clapping loudly as if she had just won an Olympic gold medal. I pressed my lips together, gripping my diploma tightly. By now I shouldn't have been hurt anymore. But somehow, it still stung. The next morning I woke up with a fragile, lingering hope. Just for once, maybe they would acknowledge me the way they did Allison. Instead, I got a slap in the face. "Emily, I have wonderful news," Mom chirped as she packed a suitcase. I glanced around the living room. Allison was trying on new sunglasses. Dad was checking plane tickets on his phone. A bad feeling crept into my stomach. "We're going to Hawaii to celebrate graduation," Mom announced, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I blinked. "We?" Mom hesitated for a second before quickly returning to packing. "I mean your dad, Allison, and me. You understand, don't you? Someone has to stay home to watch the house. And you have your cafe job too." It felt like someone had just punched me in the gut. "You mean, the three of you are going and I'm staying behind?" My voice came out hoarse. Mom sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. "Emily, don't be dramatic. It's not like you love the beach anyway. Besides, you can use this time to work extra shifts and prepare for college." I turned to Dad. He didn't even look at me, just muttered absent-mindedly, "Your mother's right, don't be selfish." Then I turned to Allison, who was smirking. "Oh, don't worry, sweetheart," she cooed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "I'll send you lots of pictures." The next day I stood by the door, watching as the taxi carried them away. Allison waved at me like she pitied me. As the car disappeared from view, a surge of anger flooded through me. They had left me behind. They had never truly considered me part of the family. And I couldn't take it anymore. My hands trembled as I picked up my phone and dialed my grandmother's number. "Grandma, they're gone," I said, my voice shaking. "They left me behind." On the other end of the line, she took a deep breath. "My love, come here right now. We're throwing you the real graduation party you deserve." I left home immediately. When I arrived, my grandparents had set up a small party in their backyard. A "Congratulations Emily" banner hung on the fence, and colorful balloons shimmered in the late afternoon sun. But what truly shocked me was the car parked in front of the house. A brand new silver Mercedes C-Class gleaming under the golden light. I froze. Is My grandfather smiled and held up a small keyring, offering it to me. "This is your graduation gift, Emily. You've worked so hard, and we wanted you to have a strong start for your future." I couldn't speak. Tears burned in my eyes as I looked at them. These two people, who had welcomed me with open arms, despite barely knowing me. They didn't need a reason to love me. They loved me simply because I was their granddaughter. For the first time in my life, I truly felt like I belonged to a family. I clenched the car keys in my hand, knowing this wasn't just a gift. It was a message. I didn't need them anymore. A black taxi rolled onto the street, coming to a sharp stop in front of the house. Through the window, I saw my parents and Allison step out. Their arms laden with designer shopping bags, light jackets draped over their shoulders. They looked refreshed from their Hawaiian vacation. Sun-kissed skin, sleek hair, and Allison snapping yet another selfie on her phone. But then, everything froze when my mother's gaze landed on the Mercedes C-Class parked neatly in the driveway. I looked up, waiting for her to speak. At that point, she dried limitless and walked home, ever so quietly. She stiffened, taking a step back. Allison, too distracted, walked right into her. And when she looked up, her blue eyes went wide as if she had just seen something impossible. "The hell is this?" Allison shrieked, her voice shrill. My father frowned, his eyes shifting from the car to me, standing on the porch with my arms crossed, watching them like I'd been waiting for this reaction. "Whose car is this?" His voice was cold. I twirled the keys around my finger, letting a slow smile spread across my face. "Mine." My mother gasped, as if she had just taken a punch to the stomach. "Yours?" Her voice wavered. "Where did you get the money for this?" Leaning casually against the doorframe, I savored every second of this moment. "Grandma and Grandpa gave it to me. Graduation gift." The air froze. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Then, my mother let out a forced, breathless laugh. But there was panic in her eyes. "Grandparents? You mean, my parents?" I nodded. "Yes, the ones you cut off because you thought they weren't wealthy enough for your perfect life." My father's head snapped toward my mother, his expression shifting from confusion to suspicion. "Lisa, you told me they were poor." My mother pressed her lips together, but Allison couldn't hold it in. "Wait!" She pointed a finger at me, eyes flashing. "Our grandparents are alive, and they have money?" I shrugged. "Not just alive, they're actually very successful. They invested in tech years ago. Now, let's just say, they're doing quite well." My mother's face drained of color, her manicured fingers gripping her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles turned white. But almost instantly she composed herself, forcing a warm, fake smile onto her face. "Emily, I think we should sit down and talk. After all, family is family, right? I'm so happy you got to reconnect with them. I've missed them too." I nearly laughed at how fast she switched gears. But before I could respond, she continued, her voice syrupy sweet. "And you know, Allison is starting college soon. She really needs a good car to get around. Don't you think it would only be fair if they helped her too?" I stared at her. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father nodded in agreement, and Allison actually held out her hand, as if she was already expecting me to hand over the keys. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. "No." I said the word slowly, letting it sink in. "This car is mine, and no one is taking it from me." My mother's face darkened instantly. "Emily, you cannot be this selfish. Do you really think you deserve this more than Allison?" I tilted my head, locking eyes with her. "Yes, I do." The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel the anger simmering beneath my mother's skin. But before she could explode, I calmly reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. "One more thing." I slid out a letter and held it up for them to see. A Princeton acceptance letter. The house fell silent. My parents froze. Allison's mouth dropped open. "I got a full scholarship," I said smoothly. "So, in a few days, I'll be leaving. And I won't be coming back." My mother staggered, as if my words had physically shoved her backward. "Oh, I can," I cut her off. "And I will." Allison finally snapped out of her shock, stepping in front of me. "You can't do this, you can't just leave, you're my sister." I met her gaze head on. "Oh? I thought I was just a nobody in this house." For the first time in her life, Allison had nothing to say. I turned on my heel and walked toward my Mercedes. Opening the driver's door, I slid into the seat and started the engine. As I glanced up, I saw my mother open her mouth, as if she wanted to say something. But she didn't. She just stood there, watching me drive away. My father said nothing. Allison stood frozen in place, her expression a mix of shock and fury. I pulled out of the driveway, leaving behind years of neglect, rejection, and invisibility. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Emily Carter's story is not just a journey of escaping favoritism and neglect. It's a testament to the power of perseverance and independence. She didn't try to change her parents or seek validation from those who didn't appreciate her. Instead, she chose to create her own value, finding love and support from those who truly cared. In real life, no one can control where they are born, but everyone has the right to choose how they live and the path to success. Sometimes, walking away from toxicity is the first step toward finding true happiness. Emily Carter's story makes us reflect: is family truly where we belong, or do we sometimes have to carve our own path? What do you think about Emily's choices? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories.